My name is Mark, a recording angel. I've been observing this earth since the dawn of creation. The Most High has asked me to share my recordings with you. The following are my records of the church's early years and earliest believers, not just adults, but children too, collected in this book, Champions of the King, the Story of the Apostles. If today's recording contains situations which might be uncomfortable for younger listeners, I will mark the video with the words parental guidance recommended. Elihu ben Malchus. The rest of the week, Elihu spent as much time as he could at the temple. It was not difficult to come up with reasons, for the temple was a whirl of activity as the festival celebrations wound down. A few days later, Elihu saw Stephen in the courtyard again. He was careful not to draw attention to himself as he edged over near the young Greek-speaking Jew.
Stephen, the other day, I went around the courtyard eavesdropping and asking people where they had come from.
And what did you find out?
Well, apparently Peter wasn't just speaking in Greek and Aramaic. I counted at least 15 different language groups of people who claimed he was preaching in their dialect. Places such as Libya and Egypt and Cappadocia, even as far away as Mesopotamia and Cyrene, everywhere.
Stephen chuckled. I'm not surprised. If we were hearing it in our languages, it shouldn't be hard to believe they did in theirs. And you know what I learned? The word among the believers is that we now number about 3,000 here in Jerusalem instead of just 120.
Elihu shook his head as a thought struck him.
Now, those 3,000 will all go home from the festival. Then there will be groups of believers sprouting up everywhere.
Everywhere Jews live, Stephen added.
And soon, everyone everywhere will have heard of, well, you know who.
Stephen was about to say something else when a great clamor from the gate caught their attention.
I wonder what's going on, Elihu said. Let's go see.
The two hurried over. In the midst of a group of people stood Peter and John and the beggar who had been lying on his pallet next to the gate, begging alms from everyone who came in. He was doing some ecstatic little dance that required a lot more agility than anyone in his physical condition should have been able to muster.
What happened to him?
Asked Elihu.
I've been healed! I've been healed! The beggar shouted to everyone. When I asked these two men for money, they said they didn't have any, but that they'd give me what they did have. And then they healed me in the name of Yeshua of Nazareth.
The two friends' eyes met. While neither of them had been brave enough to speak the name inside the temple walls, the beggar had no such hesitance.
Isn't it wonderful? I've been lame so long. This is marvelous. I must show the priest that I've been healed, and then I must find my family. Ha!
He broke into joyful laughter. Peter and John stepped up onto the low platform the beggar had been lying on. It was the perfect opportunity to speak to the growing crowd. Elihu shook his head.
They must be brave to heal in Yeshua's name with the priests and temple guards all around,
he whispered.
Yes, his friend said quietly. I feel guilty that I'm not that brave, but I have a young wife and 2 children to take care of. I just don't have the courage.
I understand. I don't either. My father would be really upset.
Despite his stomach ailment going away after a visit from the fisherman.
I don't know. We've not discussed it.
Maybe you should,
Stephen suggested.
Maybe so.
Peter and John continued to preach, and the crowd grew larger and larger. Elihu could see the priests on duty, back on the marble steps, pacing back and forth and getting more and more agitated.
I feel trouble brewing,
Elihu muttered. Sure enough, a group of the priests on duty, the captain of the temple guard, and some Sadducees who were always involved in everything that went on, rushed over, grabbed the 2 followers of Yeshua, and dragged them off. The crowd slowly dispersed, the people mumbling quietly to themselves.
What do you think they'll do with them? Stephen asked.
Probably turn them over to the Romans. They'll be put in the dungeons in the Antonia fortress next to the temple here until they can have a trial.
Do you think they'll crucify them too?
Stephen said, concern in his voice. Elihu was quiet for a moment.
I don't think so. The Jewish leaders have not gotten over all the problems caused by the previous crucifixion. I think they'll try to settle it more quietly if they can.
I hope so. Let me know if you find out anything.
Oh, I can find out plenty, Elihu replied. It's just that I can't do anything about it.
Stephen slowly smiled.
I guess the Lord has each of us in a spot where He wants us right now. And when He wants you to do something, He'll let you know and make a way.
Yeah, I suppose so, but will I have the courage to do it when that time comes?
I guess none of us know that until then, Stephen said with a shrug. But if His Spirit can make bold preachers out of those two fishermen, I guess He can do almost anything.
That evening, Elihu climbed the steps to the flat roof of his home. His father sat there, enjoying the cool night air.
Father,
the boy began. What, son?
May I talk to you?
Of course, you can always talk to me, Elihu.
Well, it's about something important, and, I don't want to get anybody in trouble.
Malchus sighed. There are a lot of things like that these days, aren't there? Elihu sat down by his father. Malchus lowered his voice. I want you to know, my son, that no matter what it is, you can talk to me, and even if we disagree strongly, I will not betray your secrets. You are my son, and I love you more than anything else.
I'm really glad, the boy said hesitantly, because I've been...
I know what you've been doing, his father interrupted. I've been watching you.
You have?
Elihu said in surprise. Of course. These are dangerous times. A lot is going on in Jerusalem, and I'm concerned for your safety. Elihu sat silently for a bit and then said timidly,
I've become a believer.
Ah, said his father, staring into the distance. That would explain why you keep talking to him.
Well, yes, I didn't know you knew.
It's my job to know such things. Remember who I am serving to? They sat in silence again. Please be careful, his father said finally. The temple guards arrested Peter and John today.
Yeah, I was there. Do you think that they'll be crucified as he was?
His father shook his head. I sincerely doubt it at this point. No one's gotten over what happened at Passover yet. My guess is that they'll probably give them a stiff warning and see if they can't intimidate them into not preaching anymore. Besides, he added, rumor has it that there are up to 5,000 believers now. Many of them are still in Jerusalem, and I think the priests are afraid of making them angry.
Father, do you believe Yeshua of Nazareth was the Messiah?
Malchus lowered his gaze and thought before he spoke. I don't know, son. The uncertainty. I think it was what was making me ill.
But you're better now. Did you decide something?
Malchus shook his head. It was what the fisherman said to me.
Peter?
Yes.
What did he say, Father?
Peter reminded me that the night that he cut my ear off, Yeshua restored it without hostility. That his look was kind, as if he forgave me for being part of the group. The fisherman told me that he forgave me then and that he forgave me now, and that forgiveness was not based on whether or not I had made my choice. I still need to make a choice, but knowing that I was forgiven took away all the pain in my stomach. I just don't see how I can work for the high priest who plotted his death and who's busy trying to erase the memory of his ever being here when he was such a good man.
As long as you believe only that he was a good man, you can still work for the high priest,
Elihu said.
But if you really believe it was the Messiah, it will make it hard.
Malchus sighed. It is hard, he agreed. Elihu hugged him.
I love you, Father.
I love you too. Somehow we'll figure this one out together. Malchus was right about what would happen to Peter and John. The next day, after warning and threatening the men, the temple authorities set them free. It was not long before they were back in the temple, talking to the people as they had been before. In the following days, Elihu found himself looking forward to going to the temple each morning. The errands and tasks assigned him as the son of the high priest's servant took him around the courtyard of women where the Yeshua believers met every day. Able to listen to most of what was going on, he got to know who the believers were. They greeted him each day as they came and went. Not everyone was happy about the believers meeting in the temple courts, though there wasn't much they could do about it. Saul, one of the younger but well-respected Pharisees, stopped Elihu one morning.
"Young man," he said, "I have been watching you since you were a child. You are a good son of Israel. Just keep in mind what the scriptures say and you'll be all right."
The boy must have looked puzzled, so Saul continued.
"You know the psalm. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful."
Slowly, Elihu nodded.
Yes, sir. I'll keep the psalm in mind."
Saul stared hard at him for several moments and then said,
"Good. Carry on."
And turning on his heel, he walked back toward the gate. The young man shook his head.
"I sure wouldn't want him for an enemy,"
he thought. But all thought of Saul soon left his mind as he drifted back toward the group of believers. It fascinated him how they took care of each other. Anyone who came in with a need soon had it filled by another believer, and not just with a handout. Often the other believers provided ways to earn money, or the funds to purchase the tools to start their own craft, or to continue what they had been taught before. It was as if everyone belonged to a large family. One day, Joseph came in carrying a heavy satchel. He walked straight up to Peter and dropped it at his feet. Then untying it, he dumped the contents out. It was filled with coins. Everyone caught their breath.
"I sold a field,"
he said in his accented Aramaic, for Joseph was from the island of Cyprus.
"and I brought the money to you, however you need it."
Everyone was delighted.
"That is great," Peter said. "We do need some more money for food for the widows. God bless you. I think we should call you Barnabas, son of encouragement, instead of Joseph."
"Yes, Barnabas is a good name for him,"
someone agreed. The name spread through the crowd, and pretty soon everyone was echoing it. The believers never called him Joseph again.
"Look at that,"
one woman said to her husband. Elihu glanced over at her. She was beautiful. He edged a little closer to the couple. Eavesdropping on people at the temple was one of his favorite pastimes.
"Everybody's going to respect him from now on," the woman continued. "What an easy way to become looked up to by the whole community."
Her husband made some non-committal grunt.
"No, I'm serious," she said. "We should try that. Wouldn't it be nice to have people honor us that way?"
Elihu's forehead creased into a frown.
He thought. "I thought that people liked and respected Barnabas because he's a really nice man, and he happened to give the money because he was a good man, and not the other way around."
But he said nothing. A few days later, he saw the woman's husband approaching the knot of believers in the corner of the courtyard. He was carrying a heavy bag, much like the one Barnabas of Cyprus had brought a few days before. Just as Barnabas had, he set it down in front of Peter.
"What have you got, my friend?"
the fisherman asked.
"My name is Ananias," he said. "My wife and I decided to sell a plot of land and give all the proceeds to the group, just as Barnabas did."
"May God bless you. That's wonderful."
Suddenly a frown crossed Peter's face.
"Is this the amount you pledged? The full amount you got for the land?"
"Oh, absolutely," Ananias laughed, "and you're welcome to it. Every penny."
Peter frowned more.
"Why are you doing this, Ananias? The land was yours. God didn't say that you had to sell it. When you did, the money was yours. Again, God didn't say that you had to give it all. But you promised to give it all, and you swear here publicly that you have. And yet the Holy Spirit knows that you kept back part of it on purpose. Why do you lie to us and lie to the Holy Spirit? You didn't have to lie. You could have given any part of it you wanted to. Did you think that God wouldn't know?"
Ananias clutched his hands to his chest. He shook his head and looked as if he were about to say something, then turned a great color
and collapsed to the ground. Shrieks of dismay spread through the crowd. Somebody leaped forward and felt Ananias' neck for a pulse.
"He's dead,"
the man said, rising to his feet.
"Dead? He's dead?"
people repeated.
"Take him away,"
Peter commanded. Some young men wrapped him up and carried him away for burial. A somber crowd clustered around Peter as he tried to comfort them and explained to them that God had not struck him dead because he had kept part of the money, that Ananias had died for lying to God and the rest of the church. Some time later, the beautiful woman whom Elihu had seen with Ananias before now approached the crowd of believers. She wore a striking sapphire-colored gown and had a gold band to hold her hair in place. The crowd spread and let her through as she approached Peter.
"May I help you?"
he asked.
"Yes," she said. "I'm Sapphira, Ananias' wife. He came here a little while ago with our gift, but he hasn't returned home."
"Yes," said Peter, "I have the gift here."
She smiled radiantly.
"Is this the whole amount that you and your husband pledged?"
"Oh, absolutely."
Peter looked into her eyes.
"Yes," she said, suddenly nervous. "We pledged that whatever we got for that piece of land, we would give to the community of believers. And, well, this is it."
"Is this the whole amount?"
Peter asked again.
"Of course. Did you count it? Isn't it enough?"
"So, you are in on this too. The plan to lie to us and to the Holy Spirit. Did you think you could lie to God and He wouldn't mind?"
How did you know?"
"The young men who carried your husband away are just returning,"
Peter said.
"and they will carry you away too."
"I don't know what you're talking about,"
she snapped, then pressed her hand against her chest. With a faint, "Oh," she fell to the stone pavement of the temple colonnade. The men picked her up to bury with her husband. Elihu started shaking and couldn't stop. Being a believer was a wonderful thing, but it could be scary sometimes. Then he shook his head as he realized that God had always been able to read the human heart.
"At least I've always known that,"
he mumbled to himself. Still, what had just happened created a strong feeling of awe. God was to be worshipped and admired and treated with great respect. With a shudder, he returned to his duties. Sometimes it felt really good just to work hard and not think about things.
This broadcast has come from the book Champions of the King by Sally Pierson Dillon, with permission from the Review and Herald Publishing Association. This book and the rest of the series, War of the Ages, can be purchased by going to www.adventistbookcenter.com or by calling 1-800-765-6955. I'm your narrator, Austin Backus, and this audio project is a gift to you from my free Christian book ministry, RXF 1888. Please visit our website, www.rxf1888.com, to request free Christian books for both kids and adults. And join us here again for more stories from Mark the Recording Angel.